Michael Van Runkle here for HotCars.com. I'm here on the banks of Lake Santitla in North Carolina. And if you know where that is, then you know what I'm about to say next. I'm here to drive the Tail of the Dragon. I'm here with RS Xperience, which puts on rallies through this area, including Tail of the Dragon and the Chulahali Skyway. Founder Andy Papa surprised me today with his brand new McLaren 600 LT. Well, it's not brand new, but it's new to him. And I'll be driving his M2 CS 2020 model year, single model year ever made. And I can't wait to show you what's awesome about this car. It's got a 6-speed manual, it's relatively lightweight, it's sort of a holdover from the actual good years when BMW made good cars. It's gonna be an awesome few days of driving, but the weather isn't looking too great here in North Carolina. We're definitely gonna get some rain, and we might even get some snow, which is a little questionable when you're in rear-wheel drive cars like this. Anyways, let's get into the car before the weather turns sour, but in the meantime, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. Thanks. Well, we got a couple other guests have arrived. We've got a Porsche Boxster Spyder, a GT4, a Boxster GTS, and we've got a trail car that's gonna be taking photos of us. It's a Macan 2015 slammed on KW coilovers. Let's see how this M2 sounds when I fire it up here. You can hear that pretty loud. He's got some aftermarket exhaust stuff we'll get into, but I think that the M2 just sounds good on its own. 3.0 liter turbocharged inline-six, 444 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. It's pretty impressive. For starters, we drove this thing yesterday just to go fill it up with gas, so I got maybe 5 minutes of driving time. I'm impressed by the roominess. This is definitely the smallest BMW around these days. And, you know, I got plenty of headspace because it's that slick top with the carbon fiber roof. I even sat in the back just to check it out, and it was pretty all right with this seat in my position. Now, if you were scooted all the way back, it would be real tight, but 6'1", plenty of space. The seats are nice and bolstered. Steering wheel adjusts a lot, which I like. Shifter's in a good location, although it's got that typical sort of springiness of, like, I don't know, the E36 generation on. ZHP style shift knob. The steering wheel itself is a little thick. It's almost like they just padded Alcantara stitched around a normal steering wheel, but with adjustable modes for the steering, suspension, throttle response, it works pretty well. I'm excited to go take it for a pretty serious drive. We're gonna have about a 4-hour loop today, they said, with some stops. We're avoiding high elevations because it's definitely supposed to rain, and there's a winter storm warning here for our Tail of the Dragon rally trip. One fun detail is we've got a mechanical handbrake, which I love. We're just waiting on a few guys to get settled in their cars, and then we'll start going. So there goes Andy in his McLaren 600 LT. We're pulling out here.
I'm going fast.
I guess I'm second. The clutch action on this thing is nice. It's kind of a heavier clutch, which I appreciate. It does have a little bit of a long travel, but it engages nicely and it's got a little bit of feel to it. Like 2.5 inches off the floor, not bad. We're on Michelin Pilot Super Sports. They're kind of narrow. I was surprised. They're 245s up front, 265s at the back on 19-inch wheels. You'd think this thing weighing like 3,500 pounds, 3,489 to be specific, with 444 horsepower, you'd think it would have a little bit wider rubber, but it seems to do okay. Of course, I didn't push it at all until we got up on some higher roads. Taking off, you can hear that engine warming up. I'm keeping it at low RPMs because the weather is 46 degrees outside right now, and not supposed to get much higher all day, so it's going to be an exercise in tire temperatures and pressures here. I don't really know how hard we're going to go. We got a photographer car up ahead. It's a Macan, but the guy apparently is a very good driver. A lot of communication on the radio so far. I'm going to start playing with this different steering modes. It starts off in comfort automatically, so I just put it into sport, firmed up a little bit. We're speeding up a little. I can also play with the shocks. It's in comfort, which is kind of nice on a rolling road like this where we're not really in too tight, so I'll leave it like that. The M2 itself, even here with the comfort shocks, it's pretty taut, but it's not prangy. It's comfortable. It's a pretty good road, but there are like little bumps and little wavy sort of washboardy parts because I think the weather here is pretty variable. And I'm impressed by how smooth it drives. The steering wheel, while fat, and I believe it's electric power steering, it's got good feedback. And you know, it's pretty tight here in sport mode. We've also got Sport Plus, which I'll probably put it on. Oh yeah, big difference. Immediately tighter, immediately more online with where I'm steering. You've got sort of like one of those little center lines here, but it's just punctures in the Alcantara with a little bit of red below it. Kind of dig it. Personally, I hate Alcantara because it gives me the willies just from the texture. It's like velvet. Ugh, I don't like it. But it's grippier, so it's good for performance driving. One interesting part about the M2, and you might be able to mess with this in the settings, but I'm not probably going to have time to do that, is there's no oil temperature or coolant temperature gauge on the digital gauge here, which I really don't like because we've been driving for a few minutes and I don't know if the engine's even getting up close to temp because I'm not used to this car. Even when I am used to a car, I really like knowing the temperatures, make sure I'm not overheating, especially oil temperature, because coolant temperature, you know, is sort of an idiot gauge. But if you have an oil temp gauge, you can really pay attention to how the engine's doing and you'll know when you're ready to sort of hit it. Now I'm heel towing just by rolling my little foot there, but it's also got rev matching, so you feel like a hero. Up into second. There's a lot of little gravel bits on the road because it definitely rained not too long ago. And it makes me nervous because this is not my car. Start revving it up a little higher, get the engine a little bit warmer. And as we're coming into some of these turns, I probably want to put it into the sport mode for shocks. Maybe even Sport Plus. I just love having those little things to play with. And honestly, so far, this car has been pretty great. You can't skip the price tag though. Andy paid $93 plus for this car, which is pretty steep for a 2 Series coupe. It's got all the carbon fiber goodies, and he made some little tasteful modifications. Let's say he added carbon fiber side skirts. He blacked out the badging and the M2CS logo on the back. He added the little arrow inlets on the side. He turned into carbon fiber rather than just black. And he did the exhaust. It's aftermarket downpipes, I can't remember the brand, and then Remus exhaust with carbon fiber tips. Pretty nice, it sounds good. It's a little bit louder than I would have expected, but we're out here in the woods blasting around, so not too bad. In town, even at low RPMs, it is a little bit loud. Took that little break moment as an opportunity to take my jacket off because the climate control in the BMW M2 CS works quite well. Now we're gonna get going. I'm directly behind the camera car so that he can get some good photos. He's got this whole incredible setup. I don't know if he's filming or just stills. It's pretty cool. Waiting for everyone to catch up behind us. We're not going too fast, but you can hear that exhaust note. It's pretty good. I might even roll down the windows. Sounds pretty good. I don't know how that's gonna show up on the GoPro, but I kind of like it. Now, the rules around here are you don't even touch the yellow line. And apparently the cops will ticket you if you go over the yellow line at all, even if you're going below the speed limit. It's sort of an attempt to keep things moderately safe around here because you've got average drivers and you've got people up here as enthusiasts trying to go too fast, and then you've got idiots who are up here and are gonna crash into trees and destroy their cars. We sort of are trying to keep like a moderate pace so far. When you're around houses or structures, you really want to slow down just so that nobody gets angry and calls the cops. It's sort of a balance of having fun while being responsible. So far, it's been pretty tame, but I would expect that the pace will pick up as the tires warm up and as the day goes on. What I was saying was, the M2 is definitely a little heavier than most of the other cars other than the Macan. The Boxsters and Caymans should be right around 3,100 pounds, maybe even 3,000 for the GT4. This thing weighs 3,489, and I think the McLaren is around just over 3,000. that carbon fiber wide body McLaren I drove was like 2650 or so, and had a lot more power, but I think the 600 LT is sort of praised for being more of like a real spirited driver's car than the 720S. But then again, you take 420 pounds off of the 720S and make it 1,000 horsepower, and everything changes quite dramatically. I'm pulling off to let people go around. And there goes everyone going by. Oh, that Boxster Spider sounds real good. Oh, now I get to play catch up. The traction control in this thing is quite generous. It'll let you break loose, no problem. And the low torque of that inline-six, BMW always famous for low-end torque, you can break it loose like I did just there. It goes nice and straight though. It's got an electronic limited slip differential. I prefer a mechanical, but I've noticed that it can get a little bit squirrely when you punch it, especially if you're sort of turning a little bit, and it'll let you slide the back end out a fair amount, even with the traction control fully on. I'm not gonna mess with turning it fully off because again, this is not my car. It does make me a little bit nervous because it's not like a press fleet either. It's Andy's car, and I don't want to damage it at all. I'm like even nervous every time a little rock pops up. It's like, oh, carbon fiber roof. Don't chip that carbon. Don't chip the windshield while I'm in here. It's not my fault, man. But it is super cool of Andy to let me drive this car, and I'm pretty impressed with it so far. I've driven just about every BMW 3 Series from E21 on because my brother is a huge BMW guy, and they've just literally been getting worse and worse and worse. And he actually, his last car, he finally switched to Audi. Now, modern Audis, I have my own gripes there, but I've also spent a lot of time in an E36 M3. You can check out that other video, one of my earliest videos here for Hot Cars. And this car is supposed to be sort of the successor to the E36 and E46 M3. Andy actually owned an E46 M3, which sort of explains why he ended up buying this. And really you can feel it when you start getting into these corners. The just perfect balance front to rear. It's just got just enough power to be fun, but it's not overwhelming. And that low-end torque allows for a big wide power band. It's a silky smooth inline-six, even with the turbo and the aftermarket exhaust. I'm impressed by the car. My only gripes would be the weight. The steering wheel is a little thick for my tastes, and actually I think could be a little narrower in diameter. They're starting to pick up the pace, so I need to get up on it, stop talking about this car. We're gonna put Andy up in front, and I'm enjoying the rev matching. I love heel towing myself, but with a little bit of help, the rev matching can certainly make my shifts a little smoother. The only weird part is when you downshift into first, like coming up to a stop, it sort of like gets you up in a really high RPM really fast, and you can't really modulate the clutch quite as well because it's controlling your throttle input, which I'm really not quite used to. One important detail that everyone always forgets about cars is visibility. And so far, the M2's visibility in classic BMW style is excellent. And when I say classic BMW style, I'm saying the style that BMW doesn't have anymore. Here we go. I believe this is the start of Hellbender. We're picking up the pace a little bit. Trying to stay on Andy in the McLaren, but he's just got so much more power than me. Downshift into third. Whoo, little bump. Braking to plant the nose is very important in this car. And then we're going to catch up to the Gladiator and slow down. It is one of the considerations here on these roads. You might just run into an average driver, and then you got to slow down and wait for them to hopefully pull out. So far, a couple people have pulled out and gotten out of our way, which is very kind of them. You know, the locals know that people up here, they're up here to drive. We're up here because we're trying to get away from people and do it safely. And then they see a McLaren in their rear view, and apparently that's just like Moses parting the Red Seas. Please get out of the way. Well, we had a little sort of rest, water break, bathroom break.
You ready?
Now we're headed up to the real tail of the dragon. Gotta warm up these tires, Still drizzling a little bit, but it seems to have stopped, but the ground is definitely moist. Tires are cold again. It's a lot of elevation change, so it's the uphill and downhill that seems to really get me. Making sure I'm in the right gear going up and down. Just doing my best in a car that is not mine. Oh, those carbon ceramic brakes just feel so good when we're coming down this hill. I can sort of brake in line with the McLaren. They're filming out the window, so they're not going full gas right now. Yeah, this is a second gear road in this car. Second gear is a little short, so I'm probably topping out in terms of horsepower and red line and just speed because I won't be able to go much faster. But it's better than shifting up and down a bunch until we get on some longer straights, if there even are any. It's the tail of the dragon. It's supposed to be pretty winding here. Here's a nice little long sweeper, decreasing radius here. And we got some motorcycles up ahead. We're gonna catch up on sport bikes? Come on, guys. Y'all gotta be faster than us, just to at least set the nose. Ooh, a bunch of gravel. There's a little bit of a burn mark on the mountain there. There we go, now we're getting up into it. I hope the sound of that exhaust is coming through in the camera because it sounds real good. This thing's got a 7,400 RPM redline, which is pretty good for an inline-six with a turbo, but it could be a little higher, you know? I haven't gotten up all the way to the fuel cutoff, but might try to. Get a little bark, bark, bark. Be curious how the exhaust handles that. This is a nice road though. You can see the North Carolina and Tennessee wilderness. It's absolutely gorgeous. They're explaining to me it's something to do with glaciers and the Ice Age, so you get all different kinds of trees from all different kinds of regions of North America all in one place. But apparently when the leaves really fill in later in the spring, it really does just become a green tunnel. You can't even see the curves up ahead. Once we're down in here, the M2 is sort of in its natural habitat because we're not going too hard due to the traffic. And it's really happy. You get good turning. The steering is just really precise for electric power steering, especially for a late model BMW, which I've experienced just terrible steering feel in. It's, you know, happy to rev up pretty high. The brakes are really good unless you've got the turbo really keeping the boost a little higher, and then they get a little touchy, but they've got so much bite that whether they're touchy or you're modulating it, you can definitely stop. We just had a guy pass and he's going like this on the roof of his car, which means I assume there is a cop ahead. So we'll definitely slow it down here. Catch up with Andy here. Put it in a little bit. See if we can pick up some speed. Tires probably cooled off while we were in that slower section. Yeah. It's funny, the brakes were really touchy there again. Out for that tree route. Of course, I prefer going uphill to going downhill, especially with a heavier car that likes to get a little bit squirrely. I'm at full throttle there, almost to red line. I'm just hugging the little line there. And then I catch up to him in the straight. He's not going full throttle in the straight, but he gets a little bit of space on me in some of the corners, which I'm not happy about. When the turbo kicks in at like 3,500 RPM, you just get a nice surge. I love that feeling of a turbocharged car. Some of these companies now are coming out with turbos that are so linear and flat that it just doesn't even feel like a turbo. It just feels like a naturally aspirated car. And again, you can see this huge group of Volkswagens. We're gonna pull over and I think let the cameraman catch up with us. But look at this. Oh, and you got some TTs. Gotta love the Mark 1 TT. That's pretty sick. Don't know what we're doing. I guess we'll line it up. Big thanks to Andy at RS Xperience for loaning me the M2 CS and giving me the experience to drive it on the tail of the Dragon, legendary road, in a little bit of a sketchy situation with the weather. Thank you for watching, and as always, before you sign off, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. Oh, and right on time, I just saw the first snowflake fall. Thanks for watching.